Shaun Attwood of Banged Up Abroad here at Interesting Talks in London to talk about the 10 most important lessons I've learned in my life.
But on to tonight. Well, this is Shaun's third time here. He had 2 sold-out talks already, one last year and one this year. And now it's about his time on, being banned abroad. Today it's slightly different. Today it's about his new book, which he does have for sale here today, which you can get in the interval, not theatre, in the break and at the end. And his new book's only £5 as well. And that's 10 lessons 10 lessons of life from a drug lord. So please welcome your speaker this evening, the very, very interesting Mr. Shaun Attwood.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, thank you very much for being here, everybody. How many of you have actually seen my prison talk? So the majority have not. All right, I'll just give you a little backstory first then. As a young person, I'm from a small industrial town in the northwest. My goal was to go to America and make $1 million in the stock market from when I was in my mid-teens. I started following the stock market when I was 14 and made my first investment when I was 16. I got hooked on it at a young age. So I went off to America, made $1 million in the stock market. Money went right to my head. I was only in my late 20s. I started throwing Manchester-style rave parties with it. Got people bringing tens of thousands of hits of ecstasy in from Holland, so I'm knowingly breaking the law. SWAT team smashed my door down, and I end up in the jail that's got the highest rate of death in America, where not only were the gang members murdering the prisoners, even the guards were murdering the prisoners. 62 people died in there over 5 years while I was there. So, I deserve to be punished. I take full responsibility for breaking the law. America was good to me, and I pushed it to its limit. But while I was in there, I saw all the human rights violations, dead rats in the food, cockroaches crawling all over us at night time, no air conditioning, got bed sores and skin infections constantly and stuff like that. And most of the guys in there couldn't read and write, so I had an idea to start a blog to expose what was going on. My writing was smuggled out, got put on the internet, and it went on to attract international media attention to the conditions. And that jail actually got shut down 2 years after the media attention got on that blog. But unfortunately, that sheriff runs 6 different jails, so a lot of that stuff is still going on. Now, last time I was here, I did the prison talk, so today I'm going to speak about the 10 most important lessons I've learned in my life. I've had to learn everything the absolute hard way. I'll start with learning to love the right person. How many times do you guys think I've been married? Any guesses, please?
5.
3, yeah, we got it. 5, almost. Still working on it. Okay, so I get to America, university graduate, and I'm in a bar, and I meet a beautiful Asian lady, and she asked me to help her move her piano. So I agree to this, not having any idea what it's going to involve. Anyway, I get to her house. She's got this grand piano that I can't even budge. But she's cooked some lovely food, and it continued from there and there and there. Anyway, after 6 months, she was 10 years older than me, and she said, I'd feel more secure in our relationship if we got married. I'm thinking, that sounds like fun, I'm thinking, not having put too much thought in it. So I agreed, and shortly after we got married, all hell just started breaking loose. I would be in the shower, and she'd burst in with a Ginsu knife and try and slash my penis off. Bit my arm, was on my arm for about 10 minutes like a dog. I could not get her off my arm, and to this day I've got her teeth marks imprinted on my arm. So anyway, I'm young, emotionally immature, pretty clueless, and I'm thinking, all right, if you've got married, you're committed for life, you're supposed to stay with this person. The person's got mental health issues, you try and help them work their way through it. Big mistake. Helping her work her way through it, we took her to the doctor, and she got on medication, and she was completely normal for a long time. I'm thinking, all right, everything's how it should be now. Anyway, her sister flew over from Asia, and we went to pick her up at the airport, and the sisters are talking, and it all sounds like it's going really well. And I'm working in a high-rise office building right next to where I live as a stockbroker at this time in the early 90s. So I'm going home for my lunch and stuff, and the sisters are still there, and it's all feel like it's going fine. Then about 3 days in, I come home, open the door, and my wife's got this really angry face that I was familiar with from earlier. And she said, my sister said, the medicine I'm on is Western poison. You're trying to send me to heaven to join my mom, because her mom was apparently killed by her dad, which is one of the things that moved me about her when I first met her. And, you know, and then she started chasing me around the living room, throwing plates at me and stuff. Now, we've got a glass table, and one of these plates lands on the glass table and cracks it, so it's got all these jagged pieces. I'm thinking, what the hell am I going to do here? So I lock myself in the bedroom, barricade the door. I've got to be up at 5 in the morning to get to the office at 6 in the morning for the sales meeting. And it all goes quiet in the living room. So I get to sleep, wake up at 5 in the morning, I slowly open the door. and the two sisters are asleep on the floor. And the sister who comes to visit us, she was very religious. So they'd converted the living room into like a chapel. There was like rosary beads and pictures of Jesus on the wall and holy water and all kinds of artifacts. So I get dressed, you know, have my shower, they're still asleep. I'm thinking, yeah, everything's going good. Got my suit on. I tiptoe through the living room, almost at the door, turning it, look around, and the old Dracula eyes. I don't think she'd have bought, but I just don't have enough chance. Anyway, she springs up like a cat with her mouth aimed directly at my man parts. She's coming at me to try and bite my penis, basically. So there's just not enough time to avoid this. She just whoomph. I feel something. I go down like this, and I look at her, and she's got my suit cloth dangling off her teeth. So there's a big hole in my pants now. I can't go to work. So all hell breaks loose. She's chasing me around the living room. Sister's knelt down, doing the sign of the cross. And I've got to go back into the bedroom then to get changed. I'm thinking, all right, I'm just going to have to call the police out, basically. Because the police would come out and take her to a friend's house to calm down. And, you know, that was the usual routine. So I call the police, lock myself in the bedroom, come out of the bedroom. When the police get there, hear the radios, and my wife's like wriggling around on the floor, drooling and crying, and her sister's just praying over her, and the police are just like, you know, what the hell is going on? And I explain what's going on, say, all right, we're going to take her to a friend's house. And they leave, and I'm thinking, oh, you know, thank goodness for that. So I sit down on the sofa, because I've got to call my work and let them know that I'm going to be late. And the front door's still open, and I'm on the phone, and she comes running in. She's given the police the slip. She comes running in. She's really fast, and she veers towards a countertop where there's the iron, grabs the iron. She's coming at me to smash it into my skull, and I've got just enough reaction time to get like this. She bounces off me, lands on the coffee table that was smashed the previous day, and pieces of glass are stuck all in, and blood spurting out and running all down her. The police come in then and say, what have you done to her? Yeah, so they got me outside, 20 cops in a circle. I'm saying, look, I've not done anything. I called you guys out so something like this wouldn't happen, and they're just not, you know, they don't want to hear that because what it looks like something else. A lady policewoman came, and she said, look at him, he's got all these scratches all over him, he's the victim of domestic violence. She pretty much shredded my shirt off me. And he's the one who's called us in. So they did let me go, and I went to work, and the guys in the office had all seen it, and they were all laughing at me when I got into the office. Anyway, her ex-husband came, and he said she'd been doing exactly the same thing with him, because I thought I was making her behave like that. It was something I was doing wrong. And he took the sister to the airport and put her on a plane back to Asia. And she got back on the medication, and she was all right. But then about a year later, she stopped it because she said she didn't like the side effects, and all hell broke loose again. The last night I was with her, she just smashed the house up. Police had been called out, took her to a friend's house. And she snuck back in and did the iron thing again, and she threw the iron at me as I was trying to walk up the stairs, and it went through this grand chandelier, and all the chandeliers falling down. And the police came back, and they actually arrested her then and prosecuted her. And I just moved out that night and never got back together with her. Now, you think I would have learned to analyse my relationships better after that. The second one I married, it wasn't actually a marriage in a court. It was an exchange of blood ritual in a forest in Sedona. This lady collected serial killer books and packed a Derringer handgun. She was a former Calvin Klein model who got in a car accident and got addicted to painkillers and then got addicted to crystal meth. And I started doing crystal meth with her as well. So I still hadn't learned. And the third one, really bright, intelligent, all-American lady, a bit on the frisky side. She'd gone to a strip club one night and fell in love with a female stripper and joined the strip club just to seduce that stripper and get in a relationship with her, which she succeeded in doing. When I met her, they were both doing lesbian internet porn together. And the craziest period of my life all happened when I was with this woman. It's all detailed in Party Time. She ended up going off the rails on drugs so hard. She wanted to kill herself in Egypt. She wanted to get bitten by a snake and die like Cleopatra. She got a one-way ticket to Egypt. No snakes in a hotel room. She made a weapon out of a Mark III razor, took a bunch of prescription pills and slashed her wrist. She was actually rescued though. She went on to be a school teacher in China, and now she's a school teacher in Africa. Yeah, so talking to the psychotherapist in prison about this, he said, look, you spent all this time analysing the stock market, looking at, P ratios, dividends, all these different things. Yet when you're entering into a relationship, you don't analyse anything whatsoever. You just jump right in there. So he learnt me now to be very guarded and, be careful. And I'm actually dating a yoga instructor now. She keeps me very grounded, so everything's okay on that front. All right, next lesson is making slow and careful progress. Why did I deal all these ecstasy pills? And when I started doing ecstasy, I was kind of a shy student. I wouldn't go up and dance, I wouldn't go up and talk to women, and it gave me that confidence, and it just became a main theme throughout my life. When I was young, I started following the stock market when I was 14. I borrowed 50 quid off my nan when I was 16 and doubled it in British Telecom shares. Went to the library, ordered all these books on the stock market, and that was my goal. I knew if I put in the hard work, I would achieve success in the stock market eventually. So I go to America, and I'm a stockbroker in America, in Phoenix, Arizona, where I was at. It's 3 hours behind New York, so we were in from 6 in the morning, cold calling up to 500 numbers a day my first 2 years. I was living off cheese on toast and bananas because it was commission only. But I didn't give up. I kept going. 5-6 years in, I'm the top guy in the office, grossing $500,000 a year, got my own staff, secretary, cold callers. And I've got enough money to retire. But I'd worked so much and I was so stressed out from all the work, I started raving again every weekend like I was doing during my university years. Ecstasy was very hard to get. And we were buying it just for my friends. The local dealers couldn't even supply enough for my friends, and I started to see the profit potential of it. I was addicted to that lifestyle, the attention I was getting from throwing these parties and buying these pills. The way I was doing it was, I would send people out to Holland. This was before 9/11, so it wouldn't work if anyone tried it now. The way I was doing it was, people would fly out from Phoenix, Arizona to Holland, and then pick up these pills, tens of thousands, put them in computer towers or pillowcases, put them in the luggage. They get the train over to France then, or Germany, because you can't fly back from Holland to America, it's a red flag. They would land in Mexico, and then I'd have students and drug runners pick them up and during the spring break season down in Mexico and bring them back over the Mexican-Arizona border. That's how we did it. And, I didn't need to be doing it because I was making good money in the stock market. It was just greed, seeing I could make this fast cash, live this party lifestyle. And because of those choices, I lost absolutely everything. I'm still rebuilding my life from scratch right now. I was worth about 2 million at the peak of everything, but I would have probably been worth about 10 million right now if I hadn't got involved in drugs at all. In the prison, you know, looking back on my life, it was the first time I had introspection, and I realized what I'd done wrong. And, you know, I was ashamed of dealing drugs, and I saw the harm it caused, because most of the guys in there were shooting up heroin and crystal meth. 2/3 of them had hepatitis C. And I pledged to go out and tell my story and share it in schools, which is what I do now, to put young people off making my mistakes. But I was contacted while I was in the prison about the prospect of being an author, because a literary agent had read my blog. And I didn't understand, you know, the vernacular of the literary profession. The last book I'd ever read was actually To Kill a Mockingbird in high school. And someone told me, if you read, you know, you'll improve your writing. So I set a goal of reading over 1,000 books while I was in prison, just under 6 years, which I achieved. And then when I got out, I met my literary agent, and, you know, I thought, oh, I'm going to put this slow and steady progress and hard work to use now as becoming a successful author. And she said, you know, we'll take the book to London Book Fair, and you should be an author here soon. London Book Fair came and went. She'd actually died of ovarian cancer. Yeah, and I didn't know what to do then. I just started calling publishers and agents and burning bridges, saying, you know, I've got this brilliant story, you need to take it. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. But I won a short story contest, went to read it at the Royal Festival Hall, and I got assigned a mentor from the Koestler Trust, who sponsor prisoners in arts. And that lady, after 6 months of working her magic on me, I had literary agents actually competing to represent me. And since then, I've sold about 50,000 copies of these books. But again, the author only makes a very tiny fraction of the money from the books. I've actually made about £3,000 or £4,000 a year, even though I've sold almost 500,000 in books. The publisher makes the most of it. But it's not something I'm giving up on. I'm keeping going. And again, it's just applying that slow and steady progress. But my main thing now is going all over the country, speaking to schools. So the second lesson is helping others. All my party behaviour was just completely selfish, narcissistic, wasn't thinking about my family, who should have been thinking about the most important people in my life. They were there for me at the end of the day when I got arrested. I was just thinking about all my party friends. In the jail, it really forced me to stop thinking about myself in that way. It kind of crushed that party person out of me. A year in, I'm told every time I spoke about drugs on the phone carries a 5 to 10 year sentence. If I can go to trial and lose, they would stack all my charges up to a maximum of 200 years. And I'm thinking, do I want to spend the rest of my life in this kind of environment? And there was a point where, you know, I couldn't sleep with the cockroaches crawling all over me at night time. It was constantly itchy because of all the skin infections and bed sores. And it's so hot in there, your skin's soggy. So you've got this itchiness, and you scratch yourself, and clumps of your own skin detach under your nails. So I was losing my mind, and I'm thinking, I might as well just slash my wrists and end my life. But I'm going to get a razor and just do it after a guard does a security walk and bleed out, so I can't be stopped. And then I thought to myself, before I do this, I want to say goodbye to my family. And what I mean by that is I was allowed 7 pictures in the jail. So I got the pictures out of my mum and my dad and my sister and my girlfriend. And I'm thinking to myself, as I'm looking at them, my mum's going to get a call saying, your son's slashed his wrist in an Arizona jail cell. I just couldn't bear the thought of putting him through that. So that stopped me from doing it. And the next day, a guy comes in my cell. He had cancer. He only had like a year or something to live, stomach cancer, something like that. He had syphilis, hepatitis C. The screws in his leg were all loose. He had some kind of apparatus in his leg to hold it together, and the jail wouldn't fix it for him, so he's like limping. And he comes in and he tells me all this, and I'm thinking, you know, I was feeling sorry for myself last night. You know, there's guys in much worse situations than me. And I started thinking, all right, how can I kind of help these guys? This was before the blog. And one of the first things I did was I started a little competition for the prisoners called Sufferer of the Week. So whoever's had it the worst that week gets like a couple of items of candy contributed by the prisoners. Like a Snicker in there was like a meal. It was like a gold bar because the food was so bad. So we'd have this little pot of things that the prisoner, whoever was the Sufferer of the Week, would get awarded. And one of the first ones, it went to a guy. There was a spider in there called the brown recluse. came out during the night, recluse because you never saw it. And you'd roll around in your sleep, you'd touch it, and it would get you. And it would leave a little pinprick, but then the pus would start coming out, and your skin would slough away, and it would eat into your flesh down to the bone and cause what's called a volcano lesion. The guards had been bitten, we'd take them to the guys had been bitten, we'd take them to the guards, and the guards would say, it's the policy of the jail not to treat insect bites. You put yourself in here by breaking law, you deal with it. So we'd hold the guys down ourselves, squeeze the pus out ourselves, mop it up with toilet paper and put salt on the wounds. Now, one guy had been bitten in the thumb, and we were saying to the guards, you know, this looks really bad, he needs to go to medical. And the thumb, after the pus came out and he hadn't been taken to medical, the thumb turned like blue and purple and then black, and then fungus started growing on it. So they finally took him to see the doctor. The doctor hospitalized him immediately, and to save his life they had to cut his entire thumb off. And when he got back to the jail and we awarded him Sufferer of the Week, he said it was all worth it just to get the stickers back. So, Sufferer of the Week's continuing, and then I'm thinking, how can I help? Oh, I started a class for the Mexicans, because a lot of them couldn't read and write. They wanted to send letters home to the loved ones in Spanish. I'd done a little bit of Spanish. And the Aryan Brotherhood prison gang had a problem with that because it's all racially divided. But I had a cellmate at the time. He was a Sikh and he was an independent tough guy. He was a white guy who converted to the Sikh religion, and he stood up to the Aryan Brotherhood, and they authorized it to continue. So I was able to continue teaching the Mexicans. The cellmate I was living with, he taught me a lot. He said, it's good giving to spend time with people and help people, especially the people you find it the most difficult to be with. And I had a hard time applying that. A guy comes in my cell when I'm doing, I think it was boat or canoe pose in yoga on the cell floor. He's a Lindo Park Crip gang member facing the death penalty. He shot a woman in the face who was holding a baby up as a protective shield who'd snitched one of his gang members out. And then a guy who'd seen him shoot the woman was found floating in the Salt River. A couple of weeks later, one of the witnesses. So this guy walks in the cell as I'm in boat pose. He says, you look like one of my victims trying to crawl away. And I was like hyperventilating. What do I say to that? You know, I was terrified of this guy. I'm not a tough guy, you know. And I was at a loss for words. So I tell my cellmate then, after the guy had left, my cellmate comes back, and I tell my cellmate what had just happened. And he goes, oh, he's all right when he's not killing people. I get along really good with him. And it just made me look at it in a different way. And that enabled me to talk to the guy. And he did actually take a liking to me. Everything was fine. And the next thing that to come along then was the blog. You know, so I'm in this jail where the guards are routinely murdering the prisoners. It's not big bad gang members. It's mentally ill people. One was a blind guy who couldn't produce his ID. They pulverized him, broke his neck, severe internal injuries. He went into a coma, he died a month later. Scott Norberg was a mentally ill man wandering a neighborhood. They brought him in. The cops started beating him, electrocuting him with taser guns. Female guard tried to stop it, and they pushed her off and kept doing it. The inmates watching started yelling, why are you still beating him? He's already dead. And even after that, they continued to beat the corpse, turn blue and everything. Both of those cases were caught on camera. Family members of the victims of the guards sued the jail and awarded millions in compensation. The boss of the jail, Sheriff Joe Arpaio, promoted the guards who were found responsible in federal court for murdering those prisoners. Yeah, so I'm not saying prison should be easy, but this is at an extreme. So I was appalled by this extreme behavior by the guards and the conditions. And I'm thinking, how can I get word out? My dad had just read a book by Salem Pax, who started blogging when the bombs started falling on Baghdad. And this was when blogs were just starting to get in the news. So we had an idea to start a blog, and I couldn't put things in the mail because the guards can open the mail. My aunt would come and visit me on the weekends, so I hid what I wrote in legal paperwork and books that I could release through the property, through the guards. First time I did it, my heart's going like crazy because the guards searched for everything. But they're trained to look for contraband, drugs, syringes, cash, stuff like that. So it got under the radar. My aunt took it out and took them home and typed them up, and that's how my blog came about. I mentioned earlier that jail, one of the 6 jails got closed down. The most response I got was from the American public, because I wanted to raise awareness to the American public the most, because they could put pressure and stop voting for this guy, the sheriff. When my Banged Up Abroad episode went out in America last year, the premiere was 10 million people. I woke up to 500 emails the next day, and they were all just completely outraged. They had no idea, and it was people who previously supported the sheriff. So it's all, helping go in that direction. It was the blog that then helping people, that then attracted a literary agent, that then enabled me to get a book out, that then gave me the credibility to do talks in school. So it was from helping people that's set my life in this whole new positive direction. Right, the next topic is acknowledging and overcoming addiction. The psychotherapist said to me, "Shaun, are you a drug addict?" I'm not a drug addict. That's someone who wakes up and's got to shoot up heroin to get through the day. I'm a party person, I just go out on the weekends, and functional, recreational drug user. So Shaun, a drug addict is someone who does drugs to the point where it affects their life. Take a look around you right now. Where are you? Look out the window. There's a gun tower. There's razor wire. Guard with a fully automatic weapon. And that was the wake-up call I needed to realize, I was doing drugs to the point where it affected my life. I started drugs when I was at uni. Told myself I can have a little bit of fun on the weekend and stop whenever I want. 10 years later, when the SWAT team smashed my door down, I was still telling myself the same thing. My drug addiction was so bad, there were times when I can't even remember things that I did. My friends have had to tell me or show me the damage. There was one night I went out, we're at an after party, 4 or 5 in the morning, and I'm so high, I put my head through a plasterboard wall, missing a nail about this long by just a couple of inches. It would have gone straight through my skull and brain, probably because I went through it that hard. My friends took me home after that. I can't even remember getting home or anything, but I just woke up covered in sick, puke all over the bed, puke all over the carpet. And the carpet's changed colour. Call a carpet cleaner out with all of his specialty chemicals to restore this thing, and he was tried and he ended up saying, "Whatever you had inside your body is so strong, I can't even, restore your carpet back to normal." Yeah. The psychotherapist, he said, "You've got a lot of energy. You've got this manic energy. You've got this addictive personality. When you stop doing something, you've got to find something to replace it. It's all energy." And this is probably one of the most important things I've learned in my life. He says, you have control over what you choose to do with that energy. So now I take my energy. I used to be taking my energy, running around with gangsters in the drug community, racing around 120 miles an hour high in crystal meth, all this stuff that could have got me killed. Now I go to sports center, do everything from yoga, karate, body combat. It's like aerobics, jump around with 60 women in this big room, the thumping dance music. It's like a rave in there about the drugs, and you come out on this natural high. I just spent 3 days at Gilfest in the rave tent till 1 in the morning, just drinking water. And people were like, "How can you do this, just on water?" And I'm like, just the dancing alone gets that adrenaline going. It's like you're almost just high on the atmosphere. But it took me this long to learn that, to identify my addiction, to learn that. I thought addicts were these people who just, were just out there with the heroin needles and stuff like that. And I think a lot of the public still think that. I'll just give you a little story to show you about the power of addiction. I met a brilliant guy in prison, one of the most intelligent men I've ever met. He beat the death penalty. He's in there now. He's dying of cancer. His name's Jack Hudson, and he used to be a Marine. Got out the Marines, joined the police, and he became the Rookie of the Year in the police force. A biker gang was cooking crystal meth in his neighborhood. He didn't want his kids growing up in a neighborhood where there was this crystal meth. So he volunteered to go undercover to get this gang and stop them from cooking this crystal meth in his neighborhood. Within 6 months, because he was authorized to get high with them, because you have to, otherwise they know you're undercover if you don't get high with them. Within 6 months, he was addicted to crystal meth. He started robbing the police compound. One night, the police caught him robbing the compound, got in a shootout, he shot 2 of his colleagues dead and almost killed a 3rd. And the only reason he didn't get the death penalty, because they made him out to be a really bad cop. The only reason he didn't get the death penalty because an army general come and spoke on his behalf about his bravery in the Marines, and the judge gave a 1-hour speech as to why he wasn't going to give him the death penalty. But that just shows the power of addiction. In neuroscience now, they're saying there's actually a gene, and once that gene's triggered, you know, if you've got that addictive personality, then you get around things, it's just going to get completely out of control no matter what your intentions are. And that's exactly what's happened with my friend Jack. Let's see. Cherishing life and the small things. I met a guy in prison called Two Tonys. After I got attacked at Buckeye Prison, where my first cellmate was a serial home invader torturer, he was breaking into people's houses and taking hammers to their kneecaps. His welcoming statement to me was, "I've got a padlock in a sock. I can smash your brains in while you're asleep. I can kill you whenever I want." He got his mate, a 20-stone California biker, to attack me just as I'm walking to a visit with my parents who've flown 5,000 miles to come and see me from England. Anyway, my cellmate introduced me to Two Tonys. My cellmate was trying to look out for me because he knew Two Tonys was a powerful guy. Two Tonys was doing 112 years. He left dead bodies from Arizona to Alaska, all rival gangsters. He was old school mafia. Now, if you've murdered only gangsters, you're at the top of the respect in the prison. If you've murdered a woman or a child, it's KOS, which means kill on sight. The prisoners try and kill those guys as soon as they come in. There's a hierarchy amongst the murderers, and it's the convict code that those guys get killed or at least smashed. So Two Tonys had a lot of respect. Now, my cellmate says, I didn't know who he was properly at this point. My cellmate says, "Come and have a game of chess with this guy called Two Tonys." I said, "All right then, what's he in for?" "Oh, murder, he's doing 112 years. I'm like, I really don't want to have a game of chess with this guy. If I win, he might not like me. If I let him win, he might know I've let him win and not like me. And what's going to happen next?" So I'm like, rather just hide out in my cell and read and not getting any drama. But he's like, "No, come on, he's a good guy. I want you to meet him." So I'm playing chess with Two Tonys. He's like one of these characters out of Goodfellas, the way he spoke and everything. And playing chess, he really spoke his mind. So he was basically letting me know his game plan, which allowed me to really beat him quickly, which I did, because I thought he's going to see through anything else. So he said to me at the end of it, "How come, you beat me so quickly?" I said, you were speaking your mind." And he's like, what do you mean?" And my cellmate said, you wouldn't show someone your cards, your hand of cards, if you're playing cards against them. And he slapped his head. And anyway, he started to like me. He said he felt that I was honest. And he asked me if I would write his life story. And he did dictate it to me. I did have a problem with the Aryan Brotherhood prison gang. I wrote a blog about how the prisoners were manufacturing items you could buy from the inmate store into syringes and shooting up with them. And all this blood was running down them from these big holes. And one guy was like, "I don't know if I'm high off the blood loss or the heroin." And I put this on the internet. And the Aryan Brotherhood prison gang put out a green light to have me smashed for putting their secrets out there. And for 3 days, all hell broke out on the prison yard, and half the yard wanted to have me smashed, and half the yard was protecting me. Guy come in and tried to shank me, but this big former Marine stopped it. But in the end, it all went away because Two Tonys called a favour in. So Two Tonys comes to my cell one day, says, "I've got a book I want you to read. A Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich by Alexander Solzhenitsyn." It took me a while to learn even how to pronounce that. There's this tatty little book. He throws it down, and I read it, and we discuss it afterwards. Now, this is the Russian gulag. People have been worked to death. It's so cold. When you spit, your spit freezes mid-air. They basically just put you to work. You're going to expire and just be replaced by somebody else. So when the prisoners are complaining the breakfast cold, Two Tonys is saying, "Look how Ivan had it. They were fighting over a fish eyeball in the soup in the Russian gulag." And it really helped me put things into perspective in life. Everything Two Tonys mentioned, or the prisoners complained about, Two Tonys compared it to how Ivan had it. So to this day, Two Tonys actually went on. He had liver cancer from his own drug taking, and he did die in prison. But I feel the spirit of him lives on in me, and to this day, I wake up with a smile on my face now. There's no dead rats in my food. There's no cockroaches in my bed. We're in the West. We've got it so good out here. And having everything taken away from me that I took for granted gave me a whole new appreciation for life and the small things. And a lot of that came about because of two Tonys. All right, I think we're at the break now then.
Welcome back on, Shaun Attwood.
All right, I'm going to try and get through the remaining lessons pretty fast, so we've got a decent amount of time for questions and answers, because I think we've got to finish about 10 to 9 here. So the next lesson, I've touched on it already, is valuing family. I wasn't abused as a child. I was raised in a great home, loving parents, didn't suffer anything. I should have been. I had no excuses to really be doing drugs versus all these other people that I saw in the prison. I didn't have the advantage I had in life, family support and all that kind of stuff. A lot of them, their families had disowned them because of repeated involvement in drug use. I enjoyed living at my house with my mum and dad so much. I went to the nearest university, Liverpool, so I wouldn't have to move out. When I went to America, I guess kind of you look at your parents as something strange when you're a teenager, and I just graduated university and I went off to America. I didn't really have this adult kind of relationship with them because I just went off at that young age. Kept in touch here and there, but not as much as I should, and put them through some awful things. They came to visit one time when I first got involved in ecstasy dealing. We're all sat in the living room watching Bruce Willis movie or something in the 90s there. And some people from the drug community come and knocked at the front door. And they were looking for a friend of mine called Acid Joey, who'd borrowed some money off them to take from San Francisco, and they hadn't heard from him since. So, knock, knock, knock on the door. I thought, all right, just pause the movie. I go to the door and look, and I see these people. And I'm thinking, I don't know these people, It's a dangerous situation right now. My parents are here. What am I going to do? Now, in America, it's quite common to have a gun in the house. It's considered shocking here to a lot of people, but it's considered almost normal out there. And I did have a shotgun for home protection at that time. So I went to the closet. I told my parents to continue the movie. Went to the closet and got this shotgun. Opened the door with the shotgun, and these guys immediately saw the shotgun and backed off. So it had the effect that I wanted. Said, who are you? Are we looking for so-and-so? He's got money of ours. So he's got money of mine as well. Now I've not seen it. He doesn't live here. You shouldn't be coming here. And they saw the gun and they backed off. But as I turn around to put the gun back in the closet, with mum and dad, their heads are like this, and jaws dropped, and they were in a state of shock. I said to them, look, nearly everyone has guns out here, and the houses are in the cars, it's normal, there's a lot of shootings and stuff like that, it's for home protection. They seem to accept that in an uneasy way. After I quit, completely stopped broken, and went full-time into throwing raves and ecstasy dealing, I just didn't show up one day at work, and the brokers didn't know what had happened to me, and one of them called my mum and dad and said I'd been found dead in a burnt-out car on the Mexican border. And because I'd gone into this underground world, my mum couldn't get hold of me. For almost a week, she thought I was dead. She was just stressed out of her mind. So my aunt managed to get word to me, and I got word back to that I was still alive. So I put them through all these things. My party friends owed me hundreds of thousands of dollars when I got arrested. I didn't see a penny of that back, and I think some of them were just glad I was arrested so that they would never have to repay me. My parents, they're not wealthy people. My dad was an insurance salesman. My mum started out as a secretary and then went on to be a teacher. And they remortgaged their house and cashed in their retirement accounts almost $100,000 to get me out of that situation, which I'm still slowly just paying them that back. Now, people say to me, Shaun, you've lived this wild and crazy life. Is there anything you would change? And the two main things I want to change is not to have dealt drugs, but I can't change that, and to take the hurt and pain off my parents' faces that I still see when I go up there. I can see it on their faces, this the trauma of what I put them through from 6 years of incarceration, flying out to visit me, and you know, losing all their life savings and all this kind of stuff. So that's a very important thing, you know, put family at the top. I wasn't doing it, but I do now. Go and visit them as much as possible. Sadly, my sister's had a little baby that's had leukemia, and that's kind of sent another shockwave through the family. She was diagnosed at 2 years old. She's almost finished with the chemotherapy right now. It's a 2-year process. It used to be a death sentence, but it's one of the things that medical technologies advanced the most in. So we're all just spending as much time together and bonding as well with that. Next lesson, learning a relaxation technique. My sister, about a few months after being arrested, sent me a book called Yoga Made Easy by Howard Kent. I'm in the medium security Towers jail, surrounded by gang members and cutthroats. Aryan Brotherhood with neo-Nazi tattoos on and all this stuff. So I immediately hide this under my mattress. I don't want the guys to think I'm a sissy. I wasn't so sure about yoga anyway. Anyway, my sister kept on at me, have you tried yoga yet? Have you tried yoga yet? Have you tried yoga yet? I've got to get off my back. I'm going to have to try this damn routine. And I got the book out. It was just a basic flow of postures. And at the end of it, I lay down in corpse pose. And I felt all of the stress and tension and worry and everything just melting out of my neck and shoulders. And I thought to myself, I should take drugs to feel like this. You can actually do this without the drugs. You know, what have I been missing? And because I've got this addictive personality, I then started to put all of, you know, my energy into yoga. The cells were small. They were about the size of a bus stop shelter, and there was just enough room to do push-ups on or to get into a yoga pose between the toilet and the back of it over here. And I mentioned earlier that I was feeling suicidal. I was seeing imaginary cockroaches. I was hearing voices. I couldn't sleep with the insects crawling on me at night. And I was completely losing my mind. And I ended up getting put on medication. And the medication had side effects. I'm thinking, you know, I don't want to spend the rest of my life on medication. What am I going to do? So I started to meditate, because that was also in the book as well. I didn't really understand the meditation side of it. It was, you know, you sit down and cross your legs and concentrate on your breathing and all that kind of stuff. And I tried it, you know, my back's hurting and the thoughts wouldn't stop. The thoughts keep coming, you know. I've got to tell my attorney this, you know, what I've got to do that. But persisting with meditation, I started doing it for hours and hours at night when I was living with the cockroaches and I couldn't sleep. And it really, really started to take the edge off all of my tension. And it got to the point where I got so relaxed, you know, minutes and minutes would go by where there was no thoughts, and that space in between the thoughts just grew and grew and grew, and that ended up actually getting me off the medication. So the power of meditation is absolutely amazing, you know. It's a brilliant holistic tool. I got moved to super maximum security after I was sentenced. The prosecutor had done a number of dirty tricks on me throughout my remand period of 26 months. And a final farewell trick was, my sentence was 9.5 years, but it was broken down into 3 sentences. One of those sentences was 26 months. On her paperwork, it said 26 years. So I was fast-tracked as a higher security risk to the super maximum security prison in Florence, Arizona, that houses Arizona's death row and the most violent, dangerous prisoners in the entire system. You very rarely get out your cell. Armed guards in shank-proof body armor come and feed you through a trap in the door. My cellmate in Supermax was a Satanist, my first cellmate. He had a pentagram tattooed on his forehead. Satanic pentagram. He was in for murder, part of a cult that was drinking blood and eating human body parts. And he was very nice to me. He just read a book about Leonardo da Vinci, and he gave it me, and we discussed it. I didn't have any problems with him whatsoever. my neighbour looked like a normal, you know, nerdy-looking, normal, quiet, mild-mannered guy, and he was a serial killer. Yeah, so that was quite a place. Now, to get a shower in super maximum security, that's the only time you get out your cell, basically, is to get a shower. Once every 3 days, you're allowed to have a shower. The guards in the Darth Vader outfits come to your cell door, You have to back up to the cell door and put your hands through, and they handcuff you. You have to go and face the wall while they open the door. The door opens, you have to back out, and then they escort you then forward to the shower. And they tell you if you so much as look, smile, say anything to any of the prisoners in any of the cells, we're just going to get your head and smash your teeth into the concrete instantly. So don't do anything like that. So you're just looking forward all the way to the shower. You get there, put your hands through the door again. They put you in the shower. You put your hands through the door. They uncuff you, and you're in the shower. And the water only runs for about 10 minutes for security purposes. But you can imagine what these showers are like. They're very rarely clean. There's bodily juices on the walls and mold and creatures in there that you don't come across in England. So you finish your shower for 10 minutes and you want to get out of there. So you start yelling at the guards, let me out, let me out. And it must be a sport amongst the guards, just, to show their authority. They just let you out whenever you want. You can be in there for hours, basically. So in the beginning, I was yelling at the guards to let me out. I'm thinking, how can I make the most of this situation? Use it to my advantage. So I said to myself, I'm going to start to do yoga positions, stood up yoga positions. And I thought I'll do one of the most ridiculous yoga positions possible, the hula hula. So I could think to myself, well, I'm doing the hula hula, which is just going around with your hips like this. I'm surrounded by all these serial killers and maniacs, and if only they could see me now in the shower doing the hula hula. So I just did all this yoga until they would let me out. At nights, the prisoners would yell. Sometimes it would go on until 4 or 5 in the morning. I couldn't sleep, and in the beginning that frustrated me. Wrapped tissue paper in cellophane, stuck it in my ears, but you could still kind of hear it through that, still couldn't get to sleep. And I thought, all right, how am I going to, again, turn this to my advantage? I pledged to myself, I'm going to do yoga for as long as the prisoners talk. And my dad sent me a book on extreme yoga. And I started to learn all these upside down positions. I'd be hung like a bat from the bunk, and scorpion pose and all these weird positions. And 4 in the morning, guard would be doing a security walk. He'd shine the torch on me and like, God damn, Attwood, what are you doing in there? But again, that's I got deeper and deeper into yoga, and even though I lost a lot of weight because of the food, I got this kind of sinewy strength about me when I was doing all that extreme yoga. And to this day, I wake up now and I do some sun salutations, and I do some breathing exercises, and I do 5 to 10 minutes of meditation. It just sets me up nicely for the day. I go to a group meditation class on Sunday nights in Godalming, and often have sessions, kind of a continuation of my psychotherapy with the teach from that in private as well. Letting go of fear and anxiety. I mentioned earlier that, as a shy student, I did the drugs and I didn't have the fear and anxiety. But living with hundreds of people I probably would have crossed the road to avoid, a lot of them. They were so scary. It crushed out of me, and I'm confident enough now to go out and talk to people, get in front of you guys, and not have that shyness and anxiety inside of me. The last one is learning to look inside, introspection, because I was just zipping through life, never ever thinking about the consequences of my actions, never looking back at all. But as soon as you're in prison, you've got all this time on your hands, and the first thing you do is you start to review your life for the first time, in my case. I realized, because I'd suddenly sobered up now, that drugs had put a cloud in my head that I didn't know had existed. And I'd surrounded myself with people that were doing the same thing, and we were all reinforcing each other's insane behavior, and that's how things got crazier and crazier until it got, to really dangerous points. My competitor in the ecstasy market was Sammy the Bull Gravano, the underboss of the Gambino crime family who had murdered up to 24 people. The Gambinos were the most powerful Italian mafia family out of New York. He set up an ecstasy ring in Tempe, Arizona, where I was operating mine. His son told me in prison he'd been dispatched one night as the head of an armed crew to kidnap me and take me out to the desert. And the only reason they'd missed me that night was because one of my bouncers, Wildman, had got in a fight and we'd had to leave that club in a hurry. There was just situation after situation where I just can't believe that, I'm still alive after putting myself in all these dangerous situations. But the drugs, it scrambled my decision-making processes, and it was telling me this is the coolest thing in the world that you're doing. The danger, there was no sense of danger at all, and it wasn't until that cloud lifted that I realized how dangerous it all was. The psychotherapist, he told me to pick a lot of quotes out of books and discuss them, because I mentioned earlier that I set a goal of reading 1,000 books. I tried to read as many of the original texts in psychology and philosophy as I possibly could. Some of it was gibberish to me, like Kant. Other stuff, though, there was quotes that I felt I could use in my life, and he asked me to write those quotes down and bring them to him, and we would discuss them. Stuff like Epictetus, we're disturbed not by things, but by the views that we take of them. So in prison, people are catcalling each other all day long, but it's up to me to choose how I react to that. So that's something that, I've remembered that he taught me to this day. He's the guy who also taught me to start a thought journal. And I was diagnosed as bipolar at my sentencing hearing. I never knew that I had that. I think I've got a milder version of it than my mum, because my mum suffers from depression and she's periodically suicidal. But even after I got that diagnosis, I was still in denial about it until he told me to write the thought journal. And it was this one entry that I'm going to read to you now that made me realize that it was true, because when I was able to read it in a non-manic state, something clicked. So here's what I wrote on this day. I'm in the prison now. I'm in Buckeye Prison. I think it's a medium security prison. Overwhelmingly, inexplicably happy. Feel as if I can accomplish anything. I've written for almost 8 hours. My mind is racing with ideas. Creativity and the right words are flowing naturally. I haven't showered, done yoga, or talked to anyone other than ushering a few visitors out. Time is flying. The announcements of rec beginning and ending a 2-hour period seemed like 10 minutes. I thought I was hearing things when rec ended because time couldn't possibly go so fast. I've accomplished a lot today, and I'm extremely satisfied. In comparison to recent happiness, I'm way off the scale. Why can't I feel like this every day? I feel like I could walk to the chow hall and back on my hands, and maybe even fly. It was like I didn't recognize myself when I read it, when I calmed down. And that, to me, enabled me to analyze my inner self, the thought journal. And my meditation teacher, he said, people are afraid to look inside of themselves because there's things in there that they don't want to relive and stuff like that. And a lot of things happen to us on the road of life. But taking time for introspection and going inside of myself has enabled me to put the wolves in check that were leading to me to going out and party. Every weekend, I would hear the wolves howling louder as it got closer towards Friday. And it was just a call I just couldn't resist. And I'd actually quit ecstasy dealing by the time the police caught with me, because I'd met a woman who wasn't a raver. But I couldn't quit that habit. The wolves were still calling me out every weekend. And they'd only wiretapped us for 6 months, and they caught me just going out with my mates, getting high with my mates. That was the initial evidence they had to arrest us. But the psychotherapist, he really spent time helping me look inside of myself. And now I feel like those wolves, every year, the cage that I've built around them is just getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And I was at Guildfest all weekend, drinking pints of water, and people saying, how can you be doing this? And it's because those wolves are thoroughly locked up. So we're all busy people, we've all got things to do all day long, but it's taking that time out just to, look inside yourself and see what's going on, and taking time to relax as well and let stress out the system is something that's been very important to me in particular. All right, that's the 10 lessons then. So we're going to move over to questions now. So who would like to be the first to ask a question? Okay.
If you look like you've got selling books, can you go back to being a stockbroker?
Could I go back to being a stockbroker? No. The stock brokerage profession, it's one of the most regulated after the nuclear industry. It is in America anyway. And if you've got a record like I've got and my story being all over the internet, no one's in the right mind is going to let me handle their money. What I can do, which I do enjoy doing, if I get enough money in the future, I could go back to trading my own money on the internet. But it's such a time-consuming thing because you're competing against so many people. It's like you've got to spend all day on it, basically. And I really enjoy what I'm doing now. I do over 100 talks a year at schools. I get all this feedback from the students. If you go to my Twitter feed and you click on my favorites, it's all live feedback from the students. They say, we don't listen to our teachers, don't listen to our parents, but you came here, you didn't preach at us, you told us your story, and it's made us see what that drugs lifestyle can actually lead to. I even get parents sometimes requesting to meet me. One set of parents said, we're lucky if we get a grunt off our son when he comes home from school. After your talk, he wouldn't shut up about it for days, and it was the first time we could sit down and talk to him about drugs. So I'm not as financially motivated. I'm still believing in success and making money and that stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. But I've learned that happiness is in the heart. It's not in making all that money. And because I do yoga, I believe in karma, and I'm trying to restore my karma with all the talks in schools and stuff like that. Yeah. There was a hand up here, yeah?
About the addictions.
Yeah.
When you were taking drugs, if you just compare the addiction of the dealing and then the drug taking, which one was bigger? And also, when you were stockbroking, was that a transfer of one addiction to another, or was it all the same thing underneath, all this different?
Okay, I've got manic energy, so whatever I apply myself to, I go at it to an extreme. Being emotionally immature in the 20s and coming from a little town where I didn't really have much up in the north, and then making all this money, it just went straight to my head. And then going from a teenager who was shy to even get up and dance and talk to women and stuff like that, to being Mr. Cool Guy who's throwing these parties for up to 10,000 people, and people, get your own bouncer team and all this stuff, and that again just goes to your head. So that attention I was getting was just as addictive as the drugs. I was completely addicted to that lifestyle. Yeah. And it was jail, getting arrested, that broke that and saved my life. Yeah, and what was the last question? Sorry, about being a stockbroker?
The dealing and then the drug taking, consuming drugs or dealing between the two?
Dealing as well, because it was illegal, that was a buzz, to me. It was sneaking around trying to outsmart the police, and we were so arrogant. We were like, we're living this Pulp Fiction lifestyle, we'll never get arrested. But the police are always one step ahead, and they've got all the resources in the world to catch up with people. At the back?
Yes, so serious punishment clearly works for you in terms of the prison environment and turning your life around. How do you feel about the more kind of rehabilitation kind of methods?
Good question. All right, Phoenix, Arizona, the jail run by Sheriff Joe Arpaio, which got the highest death rate of all the jails and prisons in the whole of the country, prides himself on, being America's toughest sheriff. According to FBI statistics, it's got the highest crime and reoffending in the whole of the country as well. What I saw was young people coming in, getting recruited by the gangs because they're scared. Maybe they've busted smoking pot or drunk driving or whatever it is. 90% of the guys end up shooting up heroin and crystal meth. 2/3 of them have got hepatitis C. The whole day, sadly, for the majority of the guys in there revolved around getting the drugs in and shooting up the drugs. And it was also almost by design. Because if you don't give these guys any rehabilitation, if you don't give these guys drug counseling, they're going to get out, commit crimes, and come right back and keep your jail in business. Each prisoner is $50,000 a year of taxpayers' money per prisoner going into the prison system. And that money's not getting spent on the prisoners. Because the sheriff said it costs him 40 cents a day to feed a prisoner. It's cost him more to feed the police dogs than the prisoners. It's one of his favorite quotes. Yeah. So it's a business model, and it's out of control in America. There's a bit of a backlash to it now, but 1 in 100 adults right now is in prison in America. Yeah. Nearly everyone in America has a family member or friend or knows someone who's in the prison system. Yeah. And Cameron's saying, we're looking to the private prisons, to come over and rehabilitate our prisoners. It's a bunch of nonsense. From what I've seen right now in this country, what happened in America was they created a problem in the prison system to say that it's at capacity and it's overcrowded, and the solution is to bring all these private prisons in. And this is exactly what we're seeing right now in the headlines over the weekend. Chris Grayling this, the prisons are at maximum capacity, so next thing it's going to be the private prisons are going to come in to solve all this. But when in reality, you know, the taxpayers are going to end up paying a hell of a lot of money. Because if you don't rehabilitate these guys and give them job skills and give them education, what chance on earth do they have when they get back out? Yeah.
How long have you been drug-free?
Since May 16th, 2002, when that SWAT team smashed my door down. Yeah, I've been sober since then.
Questions about prison.
Yeah.
What's the most usual way of drugs being smuggled in? And
Some people obviously already know the answer to this.
you haven't talked about rape, because I talked about violence in there, but rape.
We're going to get graphic now. Let me have a drink of water first. All right, the drugs in prison is less graphic. A guard was arrested while I was there bringing him in. A nurse was bringing him in for the Mexican Mafia. But the most common way is in minimum and medium security, you're sat at a table with your visitor in the visitation room, and the visitor, maybe they'll bring a baby, and the drugs will be in the baby's nappy, and they get in there, and the prisoners distract the guards, and while the guards are distracted, they pass the drugs under the table, they're in cellophane, plastic, whatever, and then the prisoner shoves them in his behind. Now, you're strip searched all the time in prison. As soon as you go in, you've got to get completely naked. And after every visit, you're strip searched as well. So if you're a man, the guard stood just a few feet in front of you, completely naked. He looks in your ears, looks in your mouth, looks in your armpits. You have to raise your man parts, turn around, bend over, spread your buttocks wide open and cough. And they're looking right up your backside to see if you're smuggling anything in. Now, the mules who specialize in the smuggling, they pride themselves on how many packages they can store inside themselves without them peeking out during these strip searches. Yeah, and you see them walking back from visit all like this. And you think they get busted on the walk alone, but they don't. Again, though, it's almost like the drugs being allowed in is by design, because the prisoners know everybody's doing it. So they use it as a means of control. So if a prisoner is acting up and a guard wants to control that prisoner, he'll say to him, I'm going to make you have a urine test. Because he knows that guy's on drugs and he's going to pee positive for probably heroin or crystal meth. And then he'll lose his store and he'll lose his visits. So yeah, it's really sad. In terms of rape, you guys are wondering how on earth does a skinny, nerdy business graduate from the Northwest even survive this environment in general, as well as not, avoid the rape situation, because it is quite common in America. Well, out of the 100 people who arrested with me were some of my bouncers from the rave scene, fortunately, including my best friend from my hometown, Wildman. He's one of the main characters in the books. He's this big and his nose is pointing over here and his fists are all human teeth marks on them and stuff like that. And so he was protecting me when I went in, but I was only around him for a year or two. After that, the people who I started to write about the prisoners' stories on my blog, various prisoners, and they started to get letters and books sent to them from people, from my blog readers from around the world, and those guys started to protect me as well. One lady asked me who the guy was on the back of my card earlier. He's a 6.5-foot African-American guy, T-Bone, former Marine. He was very popular on my blog. He's still one of the most popular guys. They called him John Coffey after that character in The Green Mile, because that's how big he is. And he saw action in South America, life and death situations. But first time he came to my cell door, completely blocked the sunlight out. He's just got his pants on. His body's covered in scars. Every single scar was a different life and death prison fight story. He was the ultimate prison gladiator. But not only was he standing up for himself, he was stopping the raping of the young people. He said it was his Christian duty to do that. And he wasn't just going in and knocking the rapists out. It wasn't that easy. He was getting stabbed, hit in the head with river rocks and socks. On more than one occasion, he was within inches of losing his life, and he was doing that for no reward whatsoever. So obviously the guy's got a massive heart. Now, because these guys were protecting me, including two Tonys, I never got in any situations, dropping the soap in the shower kind of situations. But I did meet one of the most graphic parts of my book, Prison Time, from the emails I'm getting right now from people who've read it, is the story of Shira, 6.5-foot charismatic transsexual, Shira woke up one morning, drank a cup of coffee, grabbed a razor blade and started to cut his man parts off. He got the right testicle off and the left side hides, and where he's tied it off to stop the blood comes undone. He's got his hand up inside himself looking for the other testicle. You could feel his intestines and stuff. Blood starts squirting onto the cell wall. They get a helicopter to the prison just in time to get him to hospital to save his life. Now Zina, when he came in, before I'd met him, he served almost 20 years. He came in as a young person, was weightlifting, didn't look like the transsexual Zina I met, was big, clicked up with the Aryan Brotherhood as a debt collector, and it's blood in, blood out, and he got gang raped. And I'll recite an actual conversation I had with Zina about this. I said, what happened? The first time was a gang rape. They beat me up, knocked me unconscious, shoved things inside my body and raped me while I was unconscious. I said, what did they shove inside your body? A broomstick. I said, well, how did you know if you were unconscious that they were raping you? He said, when I went to the toilet afterwards, I could tell by what came out. I said, what did you do after being raped? I sat in my cell waiting for the scars to go away. I got moved, but the same thing happened. They beat me up, raped me, used me as a sex toy, a prostitute, a punk. There's no recourse. The guards won't help you because you can't snitch because it's kill on sight for snitches by the gang. And if the guards do believe you, they'll just put you in a dungeon for your own protection and leave you there for months or years. There's absolutely nothing you can do other than kill the perpetrators. I said, well, did you think about killing the people who did this? I thought about killing myself. I wanted to, I still do sometimes, and at that point Zina started crying. We were doing a blog to try and raise awareness of prison rape. That's what this story was about. Later on in the day, Zina came back, said, have you got any more information you want to put in this blog? And he said, I said, does it mostly happen to young people? Yeah, it's mostly young people, but it can happen to anyone, big dude, skinny, even the ugliest people in the world. People who aren't street smart, they get preyed on the most. And I said, well, how did you stop it? I took the abuse for as long as I could and I started fighting. I won most of the fights. When I stood up and told them I didn't care about getting killed, it stopped. You've got to be ruthless. Now, Zina hadn't told me the truth as to how he'd stopped this gang raping business because he didn't want to risk getting any trouble for what he'd done. Zina was studying anatomy and he came up with an idea. The next 2 times, the gang came to rape Zina. The first member to put their hand on him, Zina plucked his eyeball out so it was dangling out on the optic nerve. There's usually someone worse off than in the prison system. At the same time, Zina had a friend who was gang raped. Afterwards, they held him down. They took a light bulb out, shoved it in his backside and smashed it while it was in there. He had another friend who was gang raped and decapitated. They held him down. They got a shovel from the work crew, cut his head off, and when the head was finally off, they picked it up and they positioned it in an area of the prison where the rival gangs would see it to make the point that they were the most violent and ruthless out of all the gangs. They looked at me as a visitor to their world with my little sentence. The stories they told me just blew my mind, and that's why to this day I continue to put their stories on the internet. Yeah, I did an article in The Independent early this year. If you put in Shaun Attwood Independent on Google, it's all about the threat of rape and how common it is and stuff like that. Yeah. All right. Yep.
You several times mentioned a psychotherapist. Was that actually in the prison? And how did you get one?
Yeah. This is an unusual situation because most of the prison health staff had been barred from public practice. So that's why they'd gone to the prison, and the prisoners won't talk to them because the prisoners feel if they say something to the mental health people in particular, that's going to go in a file and it's going to be used against them. So, the prison was telling me not to go and talk to these people. So I was like, there's a lot of seriously mentally ill people in there who were getting the medication and stuff like that. So that's what they were in for there mostly. But I ended up with a real good rapport with this psychotherapist, and I'd been on and off medication a little bit, and I felt I wasn't insane. It was just the insanity of the environment. I was temporarily insane, and perhaps the medication would help me get through that. But then the side effects would kick in, and I'd try and go back to being holistic. And some of the doctors in there, they were just, wanted to experiment with the latest generation of pills because prisoners are considered institutional use. They're not even human beings. And the first thing he said to me, Dr. O, was, he'd done yoga, he'd done meditation, he believed in Eastern philosophy, and we just really clicked. It was hard to get seen. We had to put in a form and request it, and it took a while to go through diverse departments and stuff like that. And the last time I saw him, I hadn't even requested it. He put in a request to see me somehow. And it was to tell me that he was leaving, that he was to get moved, he was getting moved. And but I've not been able to track him down to this day, but I'd really love to, and to send him a copy of the book, because 10% of prison time is actually my sessions with him. And it's really, really helped my life, As much as some people came into my life to hurt me in the prison, a lot of people just out of the blue came out and tried to help me as well. And restored my faith in humanity. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you change, or like your life, yourself, while you were taking the drugs? Is it more or less the way you look now and sound like now, or? And like, can one survive in the drugs trade being like a nice guy?
Yeah, I would say I changed. I started doing crystal meth as well, which is extremely dangerous, and it can change you very rapidly, and you get aggressive on it. I'm not a violent person, but it made me feel like I was safe in dangerous situations. There was a story on the news about crystal meth while I was out there, which I didn't heed. A mailman, he'd only been doing it for less than a year, and he had his 2 sons in the back of the car, and they were on the motorway, and he'd been up for days, and he was imagining demons were trying to come and kill them. And he thought one of his sons was one of the demons, and he reached under his seat, grabbed out a Rambo knife, and cut his son's head off in front of his other son. Yeah, yeah. So I should have known better, but yeah, when you're doing those drugs, it makes you a bad person. Yeah.
Get a psychotic episode, does that mean get a psychotic? The drug made him have a psychotic episode.
The guy who cut his son's head off, yeah, he was hallucinating, and he was gone, yeah. Yep.
So did you ever want to go for drugs before you went to prison? Or was it sort of forced it?
All right, the road of addiction, which I was in denial about the whole time, is a very long one. And I've realized now that that road exists because I saw in the jail the guys that were at the end of the road. They were shooting up every day, and they couldn't stop even though they were dying. It's $30,000 a year to treat hepatitis C. Jail's a business. Let's just let them die. It's much cheaper, unless they have family support and legal support that can sue for the treatment. So the road of addiction starts out here. I thought I was Mr. I was a student over here. I was a student. I can take some ecstasy on the weekend, have a rave, have fun. It's not going to impact me. I'm a functional recreational drug user. So I moved down that road to, Mr. Cool Guy now, throwing raves, blah, blah, blah. And then the SWAT team come and they stopped me halfway down that road. But I got to see that, do I want to go all the way down that road and end up like these guys that are in jail? And that's made me ashamed of dealing. It also put me off doing drugs. 'Cause I didn't know that road existed until I got in there and thought about it properly. And I didn't know I was addicted. I was completely in denial.
So if you did go to prison, do you think you would have gone down that road? You wouldn't have changed your life?
It's hard to say, but if I hadn't have gone to jail, I think things would have spiraled out of control for me again, and I would have either done myself in through drugs, or the gangster types that were in that environment would have done me in. Yeah. Yep.
There are 2 questions actually.
Okay.
So one was in your book, and you spoke about your sister writing to you.
Yeah.
It was very hard. Well, it must have been hard for you to receive, hard for me to read.
Yeah.
And I wondered how you responded to that.
Okay.
And the other is you talk about other people's drug withdrawal.
Yeah.
I don't know how you experienced it.
Okay. Regarding my sister, she wrote me a letter saying about how I'd let the family down and how she was very stressed out, and a psychotherapist had told her to let all her anger out in this letter and send it to me. Being told I was facing a life sentence had made me feel sick, But getting this letter from my sister also made me feel sick, perhaps even more sick, because it was from someone I loved, and a lot of it was true. And that's what I said back to her. I said, look, a lot of this is true, and I can't change my past. But I'll do everything in my power to try and be a good person in the future. What was the second question, sorry?
About drug withdrawal.
Oh yeah. I managed my drug withdrawal by doing drugs. Xanax and Valium. I'd party all weekend, and then, so I wouldn't have to go through with the withdrawal. I'd take Xanax or Valium, knock me right out, wake up as crisp as a baby Monday morning, and get back to whatever work I was doing. Coming down off crystal meth was probably the worst. Let me see if I've got, all right, yeah, I've actually got, this is from party time. Here's the come down off crystal meth. I've been doing it for months now, like on the weekends mostly. I'm awake with double vision, coated in sweat, my head hot and heavy, my heart beating like machine gun fire. It takes a few seconds before I can move and see clearly. The vomit in my mouth from puking in my sleep must be laced with speed chemicals because it's burning my tonsils. Stabbing pain from ulcers on my stomach lining forces me to rub my belly. I rush to the bathroom, spit the puke out, followed by endless amounts of phlegm. My body shuddering each time the mucus makes its unpleasant journey through my throat. Snot green phlegm clots with yellow tentacles stick to the sink, resisting the water, quivering like jellyfish. Attempting to prise one off the basin, I poke it, but it grips and clings to my finger like a living thing. I try to rub it off with toilet paper, but the paper sticks to my finger too. Jesus, what is this stuff? It looks more like brain matter than phlegm. It takes soap and water to scrub it off. Pain stings my heart as if it's being pierced in a variety of places. Scared I'm on the verge of a heart attack, I hunch my shoulders, bow my head and clutch my chest. I breathe deeply in the hope of stopping the pain and stabilizing my heart's erratic rhythm. I'll never take speed again, I tell myself, even though I know it's a lie. All right, next, yep.
Obviously you work on the trading floor, so when you're out partying on the weekends,
Yeah.
Performance, probably Monday, Tuesday, not too good, etc. Start to come up again Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Yeah,
Your boss,
the brains.
well, you were the boss, only your subordinates, did anyone else kind of like pick up on this kind of like up, down sort of behaviour? Was anyone there to help you out?
Have any of you guys seen that movie, The Wolf of Wall Street?
Yeah.
So the environment was like that. The stockbrokers were snorting cocaine and crystal meth, going to strip clubs nearly every night and just blowing money ridiculously.
Was it actually like that?
It was just like that, yeah. I mean, I was having flashbacks all throughout that movie. There was no one to put the brakes on, and it was extremely realistic because the exact things they were saying was all the stuff I was hearing when I was working in that environment, which is in the 90s, which is exactly when he was doing it. Yeah, so there was no one, absolutely no one there at all to put the brakes on. Yep.
How is your relationship with your sister now?
Okay. My sister read Party Time, and she had an adverse reaction to it. When I was writing to her from the remand jail, anything I wrote or said in phone calls was being monitored by the guards, and I couldn't ever admit to committing any crimes. So she said that I'd lied to her. And then when she read the extent of how much I got involved in the drug business, she was shocked, and she felt that put the whole family at risk. So that's been a real hard thing to deal with as well for me psychologically, because I feel responsible for, and she's right about what she says, and I feel responsible for putting her through all that. But again, I can't change my past, so I kind of.
She's letting you see her daughter.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Did you find out who your real friends were after you got back down?
Yeah, absolutely. You certainly do. It's like two Tonys. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I did. Yes. Okay.
All these other people in prison have nicknames. Did you have one?
England was my nickname in prison. I was glad of all things English. They were asking me if I watched Benny Hill and Monty Python, and if I knew the Spice Girls, and if I had tea with the Queen and the Beatles and all this stuff. So, one of the reasons I moved to America was, as a teenager, I would go there and I saw the size of the roads, the houses, the cars. I thought, you know, people can get successful here, and you know, the lifestyle is vast. My aunt, when I was about 16, because my aunt lived out there, she changed my date of birth, my passport, so I was 21 to go out nightclubbing. Took me out, introducing me to all these American women in the clubs as Paul McCartney's nephew. She was introducing me as Paul McCartney. You can imagine how that dazzled my brain as a teenager, and that was, you know, that's one of the reasons I ended up moving out. But the Americans, when they hear the English accent, in Arizona in particular, you know, you just get such a good response, and there's a lot of good friends there, and they really make you feel special. Yeah.
You say, are you bipolar?
I was diagnosed bipolar, yes.
And would you say you're...
Yeah, I've got. I think I've got is the 2 versions of it, and I've got the milder one.
Okay.
I hope.
So your mother also has...
My mum's got really serious depression. I'm mostly happy hypomanic. Yeah, which is like being on drugs without the drugs.
And it runs in the family. Mental health or depression does run.
Apparently, my mum has this, but she was adopted, so we don't know.
Oh.
Yeah, but possibly I have inherited that trait from her. Yeah. Yeah.
2 questions, if possible. So, out of those 1,000 books,
Yeah.
which one, if there was one, really hit home to you? Okay, really inspired you?
Yeah.
And the second question, where did Two Tonys get his nickname from? Why?
My favourite book that inspired me the most was probably War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. Two Tonys, if you Google this, 2 guys named Tony were whacked in Los Angeles by a mafia guy. And this mafia guy was kind of schooling 2 Tonys early on, but then the tables turned, and this mafia guy called 2 Tonys and his partner out to a restaurant to have a meeting and tried to put pressure on them to do something. And this was the guy who'd killed the 2 Tonys. And 2 Tonys stood up to him. I don't know if he pulled a gun on him or something like that. And afterward, the guy backed down, and afterwards, 2 Tonys' crime partner said to him, when you pull that gun on that guy who'd killed the 2 Tonys, I could see the spirit of the 2 Tonys rise above him. And that's how he got the name 2 Tonys. Yeah. Yes.
Sorry, one more question.
Go for it.
How many years of your sentence did you ultimately serve?
Okay, I was a first-time non-violent drug offender. I'd been sentenced to 9.5 years, so I only had to serve 5 3/4 years exactly.
And that's what? Including the remand?
I had an exchange transfer back to a half-time release for foreign citizens.
Oh.
Yeah. On some of it.
Time back here?
No, I didn't do an exchange. Sorry, I did a half-time release for foreign citizens. It's a complicated legal loophole that my lawyer pulled out at the last minute. Yeah, fortunately. All that's detailed in Hard Time. Yeah.
You're obviously doing a lot to raise awareness about drugs, and obviously with your blog raising awareness about the prison.
Yeah.
Do you plan to do any more work in America in terms of, you obviously are very passionate about the jails that still exist?
I'm banned for life from America. If I can get a presidential pardon, I might be able to get back. So if anybody knows Obama and they could put a good word in for me. No, I just continue to intensify my efforts on the internet and through my writing. I'm speaking at the Conservative Party conference this year about Chris Grayling stopping prisoners from receiving books, from being sent into the prisons in the UK, which is obscene. You know, books were the lifeblood of my rehabilitation. I'm going to get up there and say that. So, you know, I'm doing whatever I can. I've got time for one more short question. Okay?
Just wondering if you have any health implications from the drug use and from all, because you look very well preserved.
Yeah, thank you. Do drugs preserve people? I spoke to a heart specialist, and he said, the amount of drugs I've done, especially crystal meth, you'll have an enlarged heart, and anything could happen to you at any time in life because of stuff like that. It's a lottery. Yeah, so hopefully it doesn't. That's all we have time for. If anyone wants to come up, there's some of the books left up here. Party Time, Prison Time, and Hard Time is the trilogy. All My Life Story, and the other one, Lessons, is £5. All the others are around £10. All right, thanks very much. Cheers. Thank you.